Assalamu alaikum, viewers. Today we are joined by one of the boldest independent voices in global journalism, Canadian lawyer, author, and frontline geopolitical analyst, Dimitri Lascaris. While most commentators analyze wars from studios, Dimitri has just returned from Iran during wartime, followed by Beirut, witnessing events firsthand as the region stands on the edge. Now, a surprising new actor has entered the center of diplomacy, Pakistan. With the recent Islamabad talks between Washington and Tehran, and President Trump publicly praising Pakistan's Field Marshal and actually calling him directly yesterday, while tweeting about a second round, maybe tomorrow, the global chessboard may be shifting in real time. So today we ask, is peace possible? Is this a tactical pause before a larger war? And who is really shaping the endgame? So, Dimitri, thank you very much for your time. You recently visited Iran during active conflict. What did you see on the ground that most Western audiences are simply not being told?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your program. I've heard many great things about it, and it's surprising we haven't had a chance to speak up until now. So I'm really happy to have the opportunity to speak to you and your audience.
Thank you.
And the question you ask is very important because the information that we're receiving is extraordinarily skewed. And when I say we, I mean those of us living in Canada and the West. And there you see a photograph. That was my first stop in Iran. I arrived there on March 20th. That is the city of Tabriz. And behind us in that photograph, that by the way, is a journalist from Press TV, the state broadcaster. His name is Ali Akbari. And his behind us, you can see a massive throng of people who were demonstrating in support of the government. And I saw those demonstrations in every city that I went to. I went to 7 cities in 11 days. In some cities, I saw multiple pro-government demonstrations. I never saw a single anti-government demonstration. The country is highly unified, I would say, at this moment. They are completely scornful of the claim that the United States and Israel are trying to help the Iranian people. And the main lesson I took away from it was that the United States and Israel are effectively carrying out a campaign of terrorism across the country. They are targeting hospitals, schools, civilian emergency centers. All these buildings that you're seeing here are civilian in nature. They've destroyed residential apartment buildings. And of course, the Minab school, which we visited in the south of Iran, on the very first day of the war, the United States military massacred 168 students and children.
Yeah.
And we had the opportunity to inspect that site, and there's no question it was a school. That is the Gandhi Hospital behind me in that photograph in Tehran. You can see that its facade has been blown off. It's completely non-functional.
My God.
So that's what I saw, and people need to understand, whatever you may think of the Iranian government, at this moment, it is fighting an existential war against an enemy that is determined to destroy the nation of Iran. And I think that Donald Trump has been very clear about that. He has openly stated that his desire was to destroy Iranian civilization, which is a genocidal declaration. I think quite
How the
clearly
people
so.
are how the people are coping with it. Obviously, it's a serious situation for people. People are being killed. People are being injured. Buildings demolished. So how are the people are coping with it?
Well, remarkably well, I mean, people are worried. They're deeply saddened by what is being done to their country. They, for example, are bemoan the fact that precious historical sites, including museums that have been designated as World Heritage Sites by UNESCO, have been severely damaged. So they're quite saddened by what has been done to their country. They're very worried about their children. That child there, the 12-year-old boy, was hit at a soccer complex and has undergone very painful surgery on his right leg. He dreamed of being a professional footballer. He didn't know at the time that we spoke to him, he didn't know that his coach had been murdered and that his best friend on his football club had been murdered. So this is what they're dealing with, but their defiance is really quite admirable. They are
This is
determined to
defiance.
win.
This picture shows the defiance.
Defiance. Yes, indeed. That is a statue on the boardwalk in Bandar Abbas. Right on the other side of that statue is the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, okay. So you visited State of Hormuz too, right?
Yes, we went out on a boat and actually saw. That's the one of the captain, the port captain at the Bandar Abbas in the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
a brave gentleman, I would say, because every single day that man goes to work, he risks his life.
Absolutely. So the bravery is there. You witnessed the bravery yourself, and I remember in Iraq 2003. If there was an Operation Shock and Awe. You remember that, right? It looked different once journalists
Yes.
reached civilians. When the journalists reached there, talking to the civilians, uh, the situation changed. Is history repeating itself now?
Oh, I think that over time we will see evidence emerge which completely demolishes the narrative we've been given about this war. This war has nothing to do with human rights. It has nothing to do with international law. They claim to be so concerned about the status of women in Iran. Well, I have two things to say about that. First of all, I saw hundreds of women walking in the streets of all 7 Iranian cities that I visited without a hijab, and no one was bothering
Mhm.
them. Now, I understand that years ago it used to be more restrictive for women, but the laws relating to religious apparel, for example, have been liberalized in response to peaceful protests. But the other thing I have to say about this, and it's really the main point, a report was just done which concluded that during the genocidal rampage in Gaza, the Israel has killed somewhere in the range of, I believe, 38,000 women and children, or girls, 38,000 women and girls. This was done
My
with
God.
Western weapons. It was done with Western intelligence. It was done with the complete support of all of NATO, to be perfectly blunt about it. So when they're telling you that they care about the rights of women in Iran, they're lying through their teeth. If they are prepared to support a state that mass murders women and girls, and also a state, in this case, the United States, that bombed a school and killed 168 students, most of them little girls.
Little
If you
girls,
believe
yes.
that they care about the rights of women in Iran, I have a bridge to sell to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, people used to talk about the moral police. Did you see any moral police there?
None. I saw absolutely none.
So
I
that is
can't
propaganda.
warrant that they don't exist. Yeah, but as I said, I saw hundreds of women walking without any head covering, and nobody bothered. So whether it exists or not, their presence certainly conspicuous. Um, my sense of it, there were times where I was with the government officials because we had the opportunity to meet the governor of Esfahan province, for example,
Okay.
and he took us to a cafe where we had tea, and at the cafe there were women sipping tea without any. Um, when they saw the governor, they recognized him. They didn't change their behavior one iota. So uh, again, and I have also been Qatar, and I've been to Kuwait, and there, my sense was that women had considerably less in those societies than they have.
Let me tell the viewers that Dimitri is still traveling. Actually, he's in Greece, so we have some signal problem, but it's okay. We will try to get to the best of it. But Dimitri, coming back to your visit there, do you think looking at your impressions, has this external pressure paradoxically made Iran more unified?
I don't think there's any question about that at all. It has become,
Hmm.
I think, more unified than it has been perhaps at any time since the Islamic Revolution. Uh, you see people who are secular joining these pro-government protests, and frankly, I even hesitate to call them pro-government protests.
Right.
I think that a more accurate description would be pro-state, pro-nation. These people are demonstrating in support of the nation of Iran and against the genocidal war that has been unleashed upon it. And most Iranians, as far as I can tell, the vast majority of them at this particular moment understand that the best protection that they have is the current government and the military of
Mhm.
Iran. That no one is going to save them, uh,
Right.
other than their own government, their own soldiers, and they are therefore, not surprisingly, rallying behind them in this time of existential danger. And that's what it is. I think the true objective of the United States and Israel is to inflict so much damage upon Iran that it ceases
Mhm.
to be a sovereign nation.
Right. Right.
It's not about human. I can't stress this enough. It's not about human rights or international law.
Okay, so let's talk about the Islamabad talks now, round two. President Trump has actually tweeted today and again threatens to blow up whole country of Iran if it does not sign the peace deal. So it seems like he wants a deal at the gunpoint. But looking at the role of Pakistan, many are stunned that Islamabad hosted the highest level U.S.-Iran engagement in decades. How significant is Pakistan's sudden rise as a mediator?
Well, I think Pakistan has played a very interesting role up until now. Earlier this week, Field Marshal Munir traveled to Tehran, and
Yes.
I actually spoke on my own program, Reason to Resist, yesterday about uh, the greeting that he received at the airport from the foreign minister of Iran. And it was a very, very warm greeting. You can see the video on X. It would seem like there's tremendous respect and affection between the two men.
Mhm.
Um, and they have praised him. The Iranian government has praised Field Marshal Munir, thanked the Pakistani government profusely,
Right.
and let's be clear, Pakistan has a great stake in how this plays out because
Okay.
it shares a border with Iran.
Yes.
It engages in significant trade with Iran, and it's very dependent on oil and gas coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. I understand oil imports account for 40% of Pakistan's oil consumption, and those oil imports come mainly from Saudi Arabia and the UAE through the Strait of Hormuz. And
Absolutely.
gas imports account for about 19% of Pakistan's gas consumption, and almost all of that comes from Qatar in the form of LNG through the Strait of Hormuz. So the stakes for Pakistan are very, very high. And
Mhm.
I think that they've done so. Understandably, the government is very concerned about this and would like to see this resolved. I believe their desire is genuine to see this resolved peacefully as quickly
Mhm.
as possible.
So, do you think
And
Pakistan is merely a venue or becoming a serious geopolitical broker?
well, in this crisis, which is of importance for the entire world, because of the damage it could do to the global economy, Pakistan is playing a critical role.
Mhm.
I think that that's quite clear. And whether or not it will be successful is another matter altogether. But I think that the world will be, if the Pakistani government can succeed in mediating a resolution to this, the world will be indebted to Pakistan and the esteem in which the government of Pakistan is held. The people of Pakistan, it's not just the government, of course, it's the entire people of Pakistan will be
Mhm.
held in higher esteem if they can solve this extraordinarily dangerous situation.
So, you talked about Field Marshal Munir. Trump recently called Pakistan's Field Marshal fantastic, quote unquote, and said he is doing a great job on Iran talks. How unusual is it for a US president to publicly elevate a military figure from Pakistan in this way?
Well, I think it's rather unusual. So, especially from Donald Trump. Donald Trump has, the tendency to belittle foreign leaders, whether civilian or military. He even said
Yeah.
recently, he said of Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, that he had been kissing Donald Trump's derriere. So
That's
this is this. You'll excuse my French. So this is the way that Donald Trump tends to speak about foreign leaders, whether they be civilian or military. And I think it's a testimony to how dependent Donald Trump has become in this disastrous war that he has unleashed on the goodwill and mediation of the Pakistani government. So, again, this is a testimony. Both sides are speaking very highly of Pakistan's role in all of this. And one thing I must say that I've thought was quite admirable, and I've criticized the Pakistani government because of its, from the perspective of its democratic credentials, I've criticized it. But
right, right.
um, I thought I was very impressed by the fact that when Israel and the United States claimed that Lebanon was not part of the ceasefire,
Right.
The Pakistani government came right out and said that's not true. If this was a ceasefire that was intended to extend everywhere, including Lebanon, that's the language that its leadership used. And I'm
Right.
sure that the Americans were very unhappy about that. But they did it anyways. They were truthful with the public, and I think that ultimately contributed to Donald Trump telling Netanyahu to stop bombing Lebanon.
Mhm. But the situation is kind of dire because in Pakistan, as you've been criticizing for human rights issues and democratic issues, we've been dealing with this kind of situation for the last few years now. But calling the field marshal directly, do you think is Washington now dealing with Pakistan through Rawalpindi, meaning by the military more than the civilian channels?
I would imagine that it is, yes. I think in the look, you, I'm sure know the politics of Pakistan better than I do, but
Mhm,
my
mhm.
sense is that the military leadership exercises more power in Pakistan than
Yes.
this particular civilian leadership. And I think back to the moment in Sharm el Sheikh when Pakistan's civilian leader last year was,
Yes.
shall we say, kissing the derriere of Donald Trump. So
Mhm,
that was an unseemly scene.
mhm.
So I think that the civilian leader is more of a figurehead. This is my sense, and I could be wrong. As I say, I'm not an expert at by any means in Pakistan politics, but I believe that the field marshal commands considerably more power and respect in
More power.
Pakistan and internationally than civilian leadership.
So, what do you expect of the this round two? Will round two produce a deal?
I hope that I'm wrong about this, but I think almost zero chance that a deal is going to emerge, notwithstanding the excellent efforts of Pakistan as mediator, because I don't believe that the United States and Israel are interested in a peace deal. I think the United States and Israel are interested in the destruction of Iran. And at this particular stage, the global economy is managing the crisis. So, for example, the
Mm.
price of oil plummeted when they announced a couple of days ago that the Strait of Hormuz opened to less than $90 a barrel. It's still quite elevated, and that is doing damage to the global economy. But I think Donald Trump feels that that level of damage is something that he can manage. And
Mhm.
I think that Netanyahu doesn't care at all. He doesn't care at all about damage to the global economy. When there will be a time, I believe, when the United States will sue for peace. I think Donald Trump
Mm.
or his successor, whoever that may be, is going to be required to make concessions necessary to end the war. And there will have to be concessions made to Iran. But I don't believe that they feel that the situation economically is so dire at this moment that they have to make that deal. And a very bad sign from my perspective about where these negotiations are heading is that Trump has announced that Steve Witkoff and Jared
Yes.
Kushner will
Yes.
accompany U.S. Vice President JD. And these people have absolutely no credibility. They have,
Mhm.
lied through their teeth to Iran. They clearly are uh, entirely committed to Israel's agenda. So putting those two men in the room with JD Vance is a prescription for disaster.
So it's basically what you're saying is that it's a ruse or a bluff, whatever What
Yes,
do you think?
I believe that Donald Trump, I believe, is trying to convince his base that he's genuinely trying to end this by negotiation. But he
Mhm.
doesn't really intend to do that. He has a political problem, Donald Trump, and that is he promised that
Right.
he would be the president of peace. He did that to win votes, not because he was serious. He did it to win votes. And now that he has proven himself to be a bloodthirsty warmonger, he is
Mhm.
rapidly losing support, and the midterms are approaching. And so he wants to uh, position himself as the person who gave it the old college try. He did his absolute best to bring this war to an end, but those Iranians were unreasonable. I think that that's what we're going to hear, and that they will restart the war on Iran. They might even do it before the meeting in Islamabad. This might be
Right.
another bait and switch. So again, I hope very much that I'm wrong, and I could be wrong, but I
Right.
have absolutely no confidence that Donald Trump wants peace at this particular moment.
Hmm. So So it means that the war is just around the corner again. And many believe actually nuclear concerns are the public argument, but regime changes, people think that it's still the real strategic aim of the Americans. After your trip, what do you believe?
Well, I believe the regime change. There's absolutely no indication whatsoever on the ground that the Iranian people are inclined to overthrow their government. Maybe there was a sentiment, a broad-based sentiment like that years ago. And by the way, this is not the first time I was in Iran. I was in Iran in
Okay.
May of last year as well, just before the 12-day war started. So uh, there a significant segment of Iranian society. Iran is, to a large degree, it's a religiously conservative society, and a
Right.
significant percentage of the population, I don't know exactly how much, they have always been supportive of the Islamic Republic. And then there are people who kind of their loyalties waver depending upon the circumstances, and sometimes they support the government, and sometimes they don't.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
there's a segment of the population that's always opposed. But right now, as I said, the support for the government has increased dramatically because of this existential threat. So, but I want to be very clear. I don't think that the real goal is regime change. I don't think that's what Donald Trump and Netanyahu ultimately want. What they ultimately want is the Syria solution, or you might call it the
Mhm.
Libya solution. And that is to
Right.
turn Iran into a failed state so
Mhm.
that no matter who is in power, no matter who is in power, the government will be unable to defend the country from
The
US
country.
and Israeli domination and aggression.
That brings me to the end game of Israel. Let's talk about that too, because you see, Israel's actual end game, we still don't know what it is. Is it deterrence, fragmentation, regime collapse, or dragging America into a final confrontation?
They want to destroy Iran, and they can't do it without the United States unless they
Mhm.
resort to nukes.
Right.
By means of conventional weapons, they have nowhere near the ability. They absolutely need the United States to help them to destroy Iran, and that's the goal. It's as simple as that. And no one should be have any illusions about this. Look what happened in Syria after Bashar al-Assad fell. They put
Right.
in power this character al-Jolani, who had a $10 million bounty on his head from the CIA because they deemed him to be a terrorist. So they put him in power, and he is clearly proven to be subservient to Washington. He has been
Right.
greeted warmly in the White House. He was just greeted warmly by the King of England. So he's absolutely subservient to Washington, and Israel is still bombing Syria.
Syria.
Israel
Right.
is still occupying Syria land. It won't give up an inch of Syrian land. So this should tell you everything you want to know about, the regime change objective. They did regime change in Syria,
Mhm.
and that didn't stop Israel from stealing Syrian
Bombing.
land and bombing Syria. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, this is exactly what they're going to do to Iran. They want to create it to turn it into a failed state. I'm afraid.
But Dimitri, coming back to the U.S. policy, I've been following. I've been living in the U.S. as well. But you see, uh, looking at their economy, do you think can America afford another war? Because look at the debt; it's massive. Domestic division is high, and China, Russia loom large. So, can the U.S. realistically sustain another major Middle East war?
No, that's why I say that ultimately Donald Trump is going to be forced to sue for peace. This is going to spiral out of control, and it is going to cause immense damage to the American economy, and is going to make the fiscal situation in the United States government much worse,
Right.
especially if the Iranians succeed in persuading countries to trade to purchase oil in a currency other than the U.S. dollar. Then the United
Mhm.
States is in real serious trouble. So I think that this is, I mean, we have to bear in mind that we're dealing with people in the White House who are profoundly irrational and extremely arrogant. So they're
Mhm.
going to learn the hard way the limits of American power in this war. But I'm afraid that
And
they
look at
haven't.
Iraq. Look at Iraq and Afghanistan. They cost trillions. Now, do you think Washington has reached strategic fatigue right now?
Yes, there's plenty of signs of that. I mean, there are complaints coming out of the military about the state of these vessels that they're using for the blockade, for example.
Right, right.
There are reasons to think that there was something of a low-level mutiny on the USS Gerald Ford a few weeks ago when they said that the toilets were getting plugged up and there was a laundry room fire. And they took the
Wow.
USS Gerald Ford out of action for 14 months. So the United States military is extremely stressed. Its munitions are heavily depleted. The cost of the wars is spiraling out of control, and America has a gigantic and rapidly growing debt. This
Absolutely.
is not, I don't believe this is a war that can be sustained for much longer.
Absolutely. Dmitry, after Iran, you traveled to Beirut. What mood did you sense there? How was the people mood? Resilience, dread, inevitability, or exhaustion?
Well, I arrived on the day after uh, the first day of the ceasefire. On the first day of the ceasefire, Israel carried out a program of carnage that was without precedent, even by Israel's barbaric standards. In 10 minutes, Israel on April 8th bombed 110 sites and killed over 350 civilians. This is the largest one-day death toll
My God.
in Lebanon since the Civil War, which ended in 1990. This was on the first day of the so-called ceasefire, which, as Pakistan's leadership confirmed, was supposed to include Lebanon. So
Yes.
I arrived in Beirut on the day after that, and I've been to Beirut 6 or 7 times in the past 2.5 years. And what I sensed there was that the population was traumatized by what had just happened.
Mhm.
They were quite traumatized. When I arrived in my hotel late at night on April 9th, I was told, even though I purchased I purchased on Expedia my hotel reservation, and I had a confirmation that my room was available. When I walked into the hotel, the receptionist at the front desk, he told me, "We've decided to close the hotel. We don't have a room for you." And I said, "Well, where am I supposed to go?" And
Right.
ultimately, I persuaded him to allow me to stay in the hotel, but he explained to me that he was worried, he was fearful for his own life, because he
Mhm.
said that in this round they've actually been hitting hotels in downtown Beirut and murdering people in hotels in downtown Beirut. So the population was traumatized, but the south of Beirut, and I got as far as Nabatea in the south of Lebanon.
Right.
I saw again a lot of defiance, a lot of anger, and I think that the Israelis have bitten off more than they can chew in Lebanon.
Absolutely. So, what is the Hezbollah's calculus like? What are they planning? Are they planning full scale war, or just calibrated pressure?
Well, I paid very careful attention to statements from Hezbollah's from the Lebanese resistance ever since the genocide began in 2023, and they're very credible statements, because when they tell you that they conducted military operations, they tell
Right.
you where they conducted them, what weapons they used, what time of the day, what forces were involved, what the results of the attack were. So they put out these statements of military operations, and during this phase of the war, which started on February 28th, by my count, they were doing on average twice, 2, 3 times as many military operations per day as they were doing uh, from October 2023 to November 2024, when the first ceasefire came into effect. They were
Right.
using weapons they hadn't used before, for example, fiber optic drones, and they were causing massive damage to Israel's tanks.
Mhm.
So I think that, and they also attacked a ship offshore Lebanon with some pretty sophisticated surface-to-ship missiles, and they published video of this.
Right.
I think that they escalated considerably, and that they too regard this as an existential conflict. And the best way, I think they've concluded that the best way for them to succeed is to fight alongside Iran. Because if Israel has to defend itself from both Hezbollah and Iran at the same time, it is less likely to survive.
Right. Right. Well, one aspect is very important in this whole thing, and that is the Gulf states and the Arab states. What do you think the Gulf states fear more today? Iran, Israel, or unpredictability from Washington?
Well, if I were them, I would fear Iran. No question about it. Iran has shown that it has huge stocks of ballistic missiles, short, medium, intermediate range ballistic missiles. A number of them are capable of evading air defense missiles. They have hypersonic missiles. They have a huge, highly sophisticated drone arsenal. And they have the ability to block the Strait of Hormuz in any number of ways. They can do it with mines. They can do it with their midget-class submarines. They can do it with ship-to-ship missiles. So the bottom line is simply this. Iran has the ability to destroy all of the major energy infrastructure in the region. It has the ability to destroy the desalination plants, without which Saudi Arabia and places like the UAE and Kuwait are completely unlivable. They have the ability to completely choke the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, and there's not a single thing that the United States can do about it. This has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. So whether they like it or not, the Arab autocracies, I think, are going to have to come to some kind of an understanding with Iran and make some concessions to Iran.
Right. Okay. Towards the very end, let's talk about a little media war and the real war. You often challenge mainstream narratives. I've been following your exposts and your shows as well. Is the larger battle now missiles or information control? Because I remember, during Vietnam, credibility collapse changed policy. Could social media now accelerate that process?
Absolutely. One of the most incredible developments in this war has been that Iran is absolutely crushing the United States and the West generally in the information war. These Lego videos that they've been putting out.
Yes.
I don't know if you've
Very
been
effective.
watching these
Very
videos.
effective. Yes.
Which,
very effective.
now, to be fair, from an informational war perspective, the Iranians have a target-rich environment because the Trump regime is jam-packed with fools, con men, and incompetent buffoons. So, including people who, were very close to Jeffrey Epstein. Not just Trump, but Howard Lutnick was very close to Jeffrey Epstein. Tom Barak, the ambassador to Turkey, who has been dealing with Lebanon, he was very close. So they have a very sort of target-rich environment to work with from an information perspective, and they've been masterful at it. And I don't really see any serious attempt being made by the U.S. government or even Israel to counter this information warfare effectively. And people, one of the things that really stood out for me when I was traveling to Iran, and I announced this on social media, is that many, many people from the West sent me messages and they asked me to convey to the Iranian people that they have their full support. This I found very surprising. Polls have shown over the years that there's a very dim view of Iran because of all the negative things we've heard about it. But that said to me, and I've seen other signs of this, that attitudes towards Iran are changing dramatically. And if and when citizens of the West go out into the streets and begin to demand, the way they did during the Vietnam War, that this must be brought to an end, it's all over for the Epstein regime.
Oh, I agree with you. I totally agree with you, Dimitri. Thank you very much, Dimitri Lascaris. Thank you for your time, for joining us. It's been a pleasure. In an age of scripted narratives, voices willing to travel to the front lines and challenge power are rare, just like yourself. Whether people agree or disagree, your first-hand reporting adds something very special and very essential, and that is called reality. Thank you very much for your time. I would request you to share your final comment on your channel, how people can follow you, how can they subscribe your channel, and then we can sign off.
So I post all of my video reports, and we put out a video report on average about once a day on YouTube and Rumble. And the name of our channel is Reason to Resist, with the number 2 between the words reason and resist, no spaces. Yeah. And on X, you can find me. My handle there is @Dimitri Lascaris. And those are the main platforms that I use, YouTube and X. And if you're not already a subscriber, please become one and join our as we put it, unapologetic resistance journalism. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you very much, Dimitri, and talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.